discussing quarterbacks, I'm never going to, give him all the accolades that everybody else does because he doesn't deserve it, all right? But as an overall football player, he's dynamic, he is productive, and he gets it done in his own way. And he's a bargain as a player at $19 million. The Bears can't afford him. They're in cap hell. Like, their best bet is to hope they can get a quarterback in cheap in free agency, or otherwise they're going to have to trade away people they've already paid to make cap room or God knows what. That's just stupidity. And so there's Dak Prescott, if you pay him, you're going to end up in a lot of problems, right? Because he is really, as a quarterback, he's about the same as I look at Cam Newton. He's got a lot to be desired. He gets way more credit than he deserves as far as what he really is on that team. And I even saw somebody put him in the MVP conversation because of his numbers, and I laughed so hard I about puked because my ribs, I feel like, are broken and it hurts. So that is like the dumbest thing I've ever said, because if you remove Dak Prescott from the Cowboys and put in about 30 other quarterbacks, they're still going to be as good as they are. Like, he does nothing special to make that team win. He is just a game manager, period. Like, he is not the engine that makes that thing go, no matter what you try to tell me his stats are. Like, it just is what it is.
Moving on to the running backs, guys, this was a week in which no running back ran for more than a touchdown. Can you tell me which running back ran for the most yards in Week 11?
Kenyon
That's
Drake.
right. It was a Mr. Jonathan Williams of the Indianapolis Colts. If you can believe it, Jonathan Williams took 13 carries for 116 yards. You had Gus Edwards take 8 carries for 112 yards and a touchdown. Josh Jacobs took 23 carries, still getting a monster amount of work for 112 yards against the Bengals. Marlon Mack in that same game with Jonathan Williams took 14 carries for 109 yards and a touchdown before fracturing his hand. And Todd Gurley in that ugly slugfest versus the Bears took 25 carries. That's right. Todd Gurley, Mr. Dodgy Knee, took 25 carries for 97 yards and a touchdown. Could have fooled me in that snooze fest. Moving on to the receiving group, guys. Now, this was a little more exciting as far as numbers go. 13 players had more than 100 receiving yards this week, and there was a pretty exclusive club of guys who had 2 receiving touchdowns this week. D, your boy DJ Chark had 2 touchdowns.
So glad I played him instead of Kirk.
Marvin Jones Jr. had 2 receiving touchdowns. Our boy, our sleeper of the entire fantasy year, John Smokey Brown, had 2 receiving touchdowns. And guys, you'll never guess the last 2 players, not even wide receivers, who had 2 receiving touchdowns in Week 11. That's right, Mr. Peanut Butter Dwelly Time, Ross Dwelly for the San Francisco 49ers, and Mark Ingram, Mr. Hands of the Baltimore Ravens, took 2 catches for 2 touchdowns. So how do you like that? As far as receivers go, Michael Gallup took 9 for 148. Calvin Ridley had himself a game, 8 for 143 and a touch. We already spoke about John Brown. He had 9 catches for 137 and 2 touchdowns. Our boy, Devontae Parker, against the Bills, guys, which I thought was really impressive. I mean, his first game at Buffalo, he had a touchdown, and now you have him at home against Tre'Davious White. He took 7 catches for 135. So, I mean, if you haven't already snatched up Devontae Parker, you need to. We've been talking about him for weeks already. They got an easy schedule ahead as well. And then you have Deebo Samuel stepping up for the 49ers finally. And this is especially helpful because he's been very impactful with George Kittle out. So keep your eyes on whether or not George Kittle is going to play, because obviously that
also
seems to
Emmanuel
impact.
Sanders.
Exactly. Who knows what's going on with that rib? They say it's more of a cartilage issue than a bone, so it could be something that just pops up here and there depending on the hits he takes. But Samuel has back-to-back weeks with over 100 yards, so that's super impressive. Also super impressive, The receiver for Brandon Allen in Denver took 5 catches for 113 yards. I mean, Cortland Sutton was a sit for me this week, and he said poo-poo on you and had himself a game versus that leaky Minnesota pass defense, which is really confusing to me. I mean, solid all around, but just seem to be giving up yards at will through the air. Stephon Diggs took 5 catches for 121 and a touch, and Mr. Do-It-All himself, Christian McCaffrey, had 121 yards on 11 catches, guys. So didn't do much on the ground, but in that comeback effort where Kyle Allen stunk it up against the Falcons, CMC had himself a game. As far as who called out, who stunk it up, who had just a week-ruining type performance, we'll start with the quarterbacks and Jared Goff in that ugly matchup versus the Bears. I mean, I know the Bears are a good defense overall, but still, you had 18 completions, 173 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. Deshaun Watson also didn't get over 200 yards. He had only 169, no touchdowns, and a pick. Patrick Mahomes at least threw 1 touchdown, but certainly not the type of week you expect from him. He had 32 completions, 182, a touch, and a pick. So, I mean, Jared Goff, we've come to expect stinker games from him. He's been someone who's been on the waiver wire, probably on most people's benches anyways. But, I mean, Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes, certainly 2 names that were drafted highly and people that are being depended on heavily in fantasy lineups, and they put up stinkers this week. Moving on to the running backs, you can't really blame him for his performance because he went out with an injury, but James Conner only got 10 yards on 5 carries. So if you have Jalen Samuels, I think you can keep him in your lineup regardless whether or not Samuel is in the game or not, because it's just been proven already. A couple shots to that shoulder and he's going to go out. So Samuel is very valuable. Maybe even Trey Edwards becomes a stash depending on, the status of the shoulder. Sony Michel only had 33 yards, but we've come to expect that from him in bad matchups. Other stinkers at the running back, Tevin Coleman in a plus matchup versus the Cardinals only had 14 yards on 12 carries. Brian Hill, top waiver wire pickup from last week, only had 30 stinking yards on 15 carries in a very nice matchup versus a bottom of the half rush defense for the Carolina Panthers. Leonard Fournette, if not for 7 catches, I mean, that saved his fantasy day in PPR leagues because he only had 23 yards on 8 carries. Dalvin Cook, luckily, found his way into the end zone because on 11 carries, he only had 26 yards, guys, had 5 catches. And then David Montgomery, 31 yards on 14 carries. Just stinkers for the running backs. Moving on to the wide receivers.
I just got to interrupt here because I'm on Twitter, and I got to wonder, how the hell do I not get on a list for freaking following for Packers stuff when you got people on there with 96 followers, and I have never seen a single Packer tweet from them? What the hell is that shit? Like, quit playing favorites on here with some people that I've never even seen goddamn Packer content with. Like, quit telling me they're good Packer content when I can look at their timeline and there ain't nothing on there. Like, for real, man. 96 followers, no Packer tweets tell me to follow them with Packer stuff. Ridiculous.
Yeah, man. Get in the game. Snap into a Slim Jim. I don't know. Anyways.
I'm just.
I know. Moving on to who called out at wide receiver. Mike Evans, we thought was going to have himself a nice game.
Oh!
Versus the Saints, who did not have Marshawn Lattimore. He only had 69 yards on 4 catches. Cooper Kupp only had 53 yards on 3 catches. Another stinker week for Cooper Kupp. We're definitely hoping for more out of him after such a hot start to the season. I mean, Robbie Anderson for the New York Jets. I finally put him on the bench. I just couldn't stick him in my lineup anymore after 2 horrible games and very plus matchups. And when you know it, he finds his way to the end zone. If not for that touchdown, Robbie Anderson has 1 catch for 6 yards. Amari Cooper, I believe he ended up getting banged up in this game, but he only had himself 38 yards on 3 catches, guys. Amari Cooper is kind of a risky play going forward with this injury. You just don't know what's going to happen and when it's going to happen.
Playing through a couple injuries, I believe. There's a couple there, and, I mean, I'll give him props for playing through it, but, man, I've said this before. Sit him for a game or two, rest him up, and just let him get healthy for the run, because there's no reason to wear him out even more and possibly hurt him out through the rest of the postseason. Because the Cowboys, I'd say it, Dillon, they look like favorites for the NFC least. Yeah.
What hurts the most?
I mean, even that's the thing. They're going against powerhouses with teams with at least 8 wins right now.
They have a
week
deadly
12.
schedule.
I'm sorry, we just finished up week 11, and that's the thing. They have a deadly schedule. Plus, you go into it, if they face any wild card teams, Seattle's sitting at 8-2, Vikings 8-3. Vikings just beat Dallas in Dallas, so it's not gonna rest Amari Cooper, Jerry Jones, please, because if you don't, you're screwed.
Last stinker I'll mention, Tyler Boyd only had 1 catch, didn't gain any yards on that single catch. The switch to Ryan Finley has not gone well for Mr. Boyd. He has been basically my guy the entire year because I have him in multiple leagues. Paid off a couple times, but other than that, it almost seems like Tyler Boyd could be a drop at this point, especially if you're talking about picking up a guy like Devontae Parker, some other guys we're going to mention in the next segment we move into here.
Jay, does that mean
What? I was on Twitter again, dude. What? Like, you were rambling, talking, and so I'm like,
no? Actually, we paused. We were waiting for you.
For what? What were you doing?
I think we stuck to the rundown.
Would you like to go to the break before waiver wire, or just dive right in?
You know, we can go to break. Fine. You know, now that you guys are all being diligent and shit. You see what happens
God forbid.
here?
Not being rundown fans, and we're rundown fans.
And if you haven't had enough of our banter tonight, you want to visit NFL Addictions on Facebook.com for all of your NFL banter and chatter. It's not a trash talk site, so keep it clean and keep it cordial. That's NFL Addictions on Facebook.com. And if you still got an itch to scratch when you're done with that, you want to visit Raz Addictions on Facebook.com for their version of the raffle for all kinds of cool prizes, even a chance at winning some cash. You buy a $10 raffle ticket for a chance at winning $100. That's a chance at making 10 times your money. It don't get any better than that. That's Raz Addictions on Facebook.com for a chance at all kinds of cool prizes. Tell them what you've won, Dave.
I've won everything from tailgating barbecue sets. That I have a Packers one that I won, folks, for $400. I put $40 down on the spot. I won it, and it was out of 20 spots. It's really worth it. I've also won helmets that are signed. I've won banners that are signed. I've won memorabilia rings. I've won footballs that are signed, and other Packers knickknacks, because that's my team. But go ahead and check them out. Cheap, affordable prices for certified, authentic stuff.
That's Raz Addictions on Facebook.com. Go there, play, and win. And as always, you can follow us on Twitter at First and Goal Pod, myself at UPJ33, Dave is at Steak and Cheese, and the fantasy wonder himself, Dillon, at Dillon Busby1. Email us at firstandgoalpodcast@yahoo.com with all your football and Packer questions and comments, and you just might find yourself making the show live. That's firstandgoalpodcast@yahoo.com. All right, we're back. Before we get back to Dillon's thing, we have a major issue on this show between Dave and I. If you're going to retweet me and tell people to follow me, don't fucking lie to them and tell them to follow a gentle soul. There's nothing gentle about this prickly little angry person. Don't. I'm mushy on the inside, but I will punch you in the face before you get to that. Stop it. I'm only mushy when I'm not wounded, and I'm angry right now. I'm a wounded warrior, hurting, and I can't go to the chiropractor until Thursday. And I have to ice my... I had to finish it or it was going to break my porch again. Look, I'm not getting into this.
I want a J rant so bad.
I'm not doing this right now.
He knew what I was doing. Damn it. He knew it.
Go, bro.
Okay.
Go. Dillon, you're up.
Well, fantasy world, it's that time of the week to dig into your waiver wire, see who is available, who you can stick into your lineups and help you out this